What's a random act of kindness that stuck with you? A few years ago, living in South Korea. Just gotten back from a trip, and was trying to get a taxi from a highway rest stop at like 2 a.m. aka, very difficult. Finally managed to book a taxi, but I couldn't find the driver when he got there. He was calling me and getting frustrated, and I was getting overwhelmed. I don't know if you've ever had to exist in a language that's not your native language, but there usually comes a point where you're so tired, you just can't anymore, and even if you know you understand, it's just not making sense. I had reached that point, so I sat down and resigned myself to losing the taxi and having to camp at the rest stop for the night. Some random old Korean man saw me crying and saying, "I don't speak Korean well. I'm sorry. I don't understand," and grabbed the phone, got me to the taxi, and his wife, I assume, handed me some candy and patted my arm and told me I'd be okay. And then the taxi driver was super sweet and was all like, "It's okay. You'll be home soon." All of them could have very easily ignored me, but were just like, "Here's a person who obviously needs help, so I'm gonna help." I'm happy I looked into this thread because of stories like this. Just feels good about humanity. When the Xbox Series 10 came out, I was first in line to get one in store. Talked with 2 other people for an hour and a half until the store opened and they told us only 2 were available. Let it go to the lady waiting in line who wanted to get it for her son for Christmas because I'm expecting my daughter in May and I just thought about what if that was me for my daughter one day? She managed to find our registry at Target and bought a few things off of it as well as members of her family, and her husband is a photographer who offered to do a couple's shoot for us for free. When I was maybe 19 I was flying back home to see family. I had a layover in Atlanta, it was short. I had to absolutely haul ass to make my flight. I managed to get to one of the trains that take you to the next terminal. I had never been on one before and had my earbuds in so I didn't hear the automated voice telling me to hold on. The train lurched forward and before I could fall on my ass, a guy next to me grabbed my arm and stopped me from falling. I thanked him and he just nodded. That was a decade ago and I am still appreciative. I was 16 and lost control of my car on an icy road. A young 20-something guy saw and stopped and waited with me for my dad and the police to arrive. He didn't know me at all. Just some teen girl sobbing on the road. He even talked to my dad on the phone when I couldn't stop crying long enough to speak. I met a guy at the bar who insisted to pay for my dinner. I didn't know why really. He also insisted I pay for somebody else's and it would be just like him buying them dinner. He said if everyone I meet pays it forward, life will be better for everyone. I did pay it forward. In 7th grade, I wasn't allowed to board a bus for one reason or the other, I forget. So I'm standing outside in the dark at 7 in the morning quietly crying when this kind old lady who just dropped off her grandchildren offered to take me home. I'd seen her around before so I knew she was safe. We talked for a bit and she let me off at my house. Never forgetting that. An amp, #X200B, edit forgot to say this was a school bus, sorry. My little sister offering to give me her kidney for transplant, smiling face with tear. I've shared this story before, but I'll never forget this experience. When I was a kid we didn't have a lot of money, so we often shopped at thrift stores. What I loved about that was that you could get 10 books for $1, so I would plant myself in front of the book section and make piles of which one I wanted to get and then decided after I'd gone through them all. One day an older lady saw me sitting with my piles and asked if I liked to read. I told her I did and showed her a few of the books I found that I liked. She smiled and then pulled $1 out of her purse, handed it to me and said, "Promise me that you'll keep reading." I was so happy and immediately stood up and said that I would. She smiled and walked away and I went back to my piles able to pick out an extra 10 books to take home. It was just a small act of kindness for her, but for me having a random stranger encourage my love of reading and making me promise to never stop definitely had a lot to do with my continued love of reading. This was probably 22 to 23 years ago, but I still think of her whenever I buy a new book. An Albanian man who picked me up while hitchhiking. At the end he gave me €50 saying that they're good people and not like how they're described in Italy, my country. This happened in southern Albania. I was a frazzled new mom in the grocery store about the 3rd time I passed this older woman. She said, "Stop clenching your teeth and you'll feel better." Something in her voice just told me she really cared. 10 years later I still think of that woman and try to relax my face when I'm stressed. In middle school I was kinda depressed and sitting by myself on this school trip to a water park, and this girl like 2 years younger than me walked over by herself and made sure I was okay. It was in a picnic area when everybody else was swimming. I thought she was brave and sweet. I don't remember her, but it really meant a lot to know somebody cared. My manager texted me with a random cartoon question, and when I had the answer he came in on Monday with $100 for me cause I apparently had won him money. Felt pretty random since we nearly never talked, and I think he just knew I was the office nerd. Holy shit, that's awesome. I've given my manager advice because we both do sportsbook bets, and all I'd get is a "thanks for the help, I should ask for your help more often." When I broke my ankle, every single person looked at me on the ground bleeding and walked on. It was really strange to experience. One guy saw me, brought his whole truck around and offered to take me to the hospital. There was already an ambulance coming, so I declined, but he sat there and talked to me and told me it's going to be okay. He really sticks out. Almost 10 people walked by and minded their business while I was on the ground, my bones sticking out of my leg. He came up and helped. I really hope he's doing okay. I crashed my mom's car into a lamppost when I was 19, mechanical failure, the little bolt that connected the steering wheel to the axle broken while I was turning. Some guy saw and jumped into action to make sure I was okay. Another random guy from the corner store saw and came running out with ice and rags. I'd hit my head pretty good on the steering wheel and was bleeding. It was all a huge rush of things happening, but I clearly remember my first thought being, I have to call my parents, so I grabbed my phone and opened the conversation with, "Mom, I got in an accident," and hearing the guy saying over my shoulder, "Tell her you're okay. Tell her you're okay. Ma'am, she's okay." He stuck around until Ems and my parents got there. Sometimes the best thing to do if someone is hurt is to stay out of the way, but only if someone is already helping them and you helping would only put you in the way. I'm glad you're okay. My husband and I were in a car accident where a drunk guy ran onto the highway and we hit him in the middle of the day, just bolted in front of the car. We sat there in a smashed-up car with a dead body lying behind the car for 15 minutes before a car stopped and helped us. Neither of us could speak because of the shock. This lady saw us in the car and made her husband come back around so she could help. Hundreds of cars passed, she was the only one who stopped. She called the police and ambulance, and waited until they arrived. Really grateful for her and her husband. A lady in the park with her husband passing by, both well dressed. There was a guy sitting, didn't look homeless but looked like he didn't shower for a while, wasn't crying then but his face suggests he had been crying his eyes out. The lady got on her knees, spoke to him and hugged him. She kept hugging him and comforting him. Her husband didn't like that and kept telling her that they should be going. She just gave him a cold stare and kept hugging the sad dude. I fell in love with that lady right then. Ran out of gas on a large interstate in the Midwest in the middle of the day. I was headed home, 3+ hour drive, for the weekend with my fiancé for wedding planning stuff. Got out and hoofed it with a makeshift container in hand to haul gas back to the car and asked my fiancé to stay seated with the only cell phone between us. As I walked up and got gas a mile down at a major interchange, a skeezy-looking dude rolled up in a Thunderbird. He says, "Hey man, can I take you back up to your car?" I must have given him a look. He's dismissive, waves off my concerns and says I can trust him. I don't want to walk but I figure it's broad daylight, so we leave and he's going off on a state highway in the literal opposite direction I need to go. I'm sweating my ass off and it is not hot out. He asks about 5 minutes in where I'm coming from and where I'm going. I give asterisk as little info as possible asterisk and mention that my fiancé has a phone and I don't show up soon. I am absolutely shaking at this point. The guy says, "Hey, man, you seem nervous, what music are you into?" I tell him I'm honestly open-minded, which I'm sure doesn't mean a thing. He hits the power button on the CD player and, as sure as the sun will rise tomorrow, the CD player plays the same damn record on the exact same song that my wife and I were playing when the car ran out of gas. This dude takes a few quick backroad turns and pops out on the interstate behind my car in no time. I ask him why he helped me. He says he's a dishwasher at the Cracker Barrel next to the gas station. He was on smoke break and saw me coming a way off. When he pulls up, he refuses any acknowledgement of his good deed and literally pulls off when I say, "Hold up, let me throw you a 5 for your troubles." Probably sounds stupid but I just want to be as anonymously awesome as this dude was. He saved me from suffering just to save me from suffering. I don't know what saints are, but this felt saintly AF. On a very hot summer day, I passed out on the sidewalk from dehydration, heat exhaustion. 2 older women picked me up off the ground, dragged me into a nearby Chipotle, and sat with me while I drank water. They were really nice about it.